Hey everyone. Today I wanted to go over 5 things that we shouldn't waste our prepping budget or our prepping money on. Now, with prepping, it's inevitable that we need to spend some money on some stuff at one point or another, but there's a lot of stuff in preparedness that doesn't require that we spend any money at all, the education stuff. But like I said, at some point, it's inevitable that we have to spend some money. Now, what we spend it on and how much we spend and how much we waste, that's a completely different story. With preparedness, there's so many different aspects of preparedness. We kind of steal a little bit from all of these different areas. There's so many different things that go into preparedness that it's gonna, we can't escape having to spend money. You've got the military aspect, which is a huge part of prepping. You've got bushcraft, which is a large part of prepping for a lot of people as well. You've got the gardening, the canning, the alternative energy stuff, mechanics. So much that goes. Like I said, we steal pieces and parts of this stuff and include it in preparedness. If you're like me, you can probably justify any expense you have and say that it's for preparedness, whether it's buying a new coat, a new firearm, or anything like that. You can say, well, this is going to help me become better prepared, which, yeah, I suppose it probably would. But, is it going to be one of those things that's really useful in your preparedness plans? And this is where the 80-20 rule comes in. 80% of the results you get are going to be from 20% of the things you do, the work you put in, the money you spend, and all of that. Basically, 80% of what you do is probably going to help your preparedness plans, but it's not going to have the impact that other 20% would. So the trick is finding out what that 20% is and where you should focus most of your energy. A lot of the time, most of that 20% is that further education, that learning. We can buy a firearm, we can buy a ham radio, but to become really proficient at ham radio, it's not just, the gear we buy. It's actually learning the processes and learning how to work that stuff, and honing everything in. So that's the 20% of the stuff that really is going to make an impact on our preparedness. And that's kind of why I wanted to do this video. Is there's a few things, and if you guys have any comments or anything to add to this, please do so in the comments below. But I've got a few things that we fall into this trap. I do, of wasting our time on when in the big picture, when you think about the big picture and the stuff that could happen, there's a lot more that's important rather than some of this small stuff. So the first one I've got here is these subscription boxes. And this is not to say, don't ever do them. If you're that person that enjoys these, if you can afford to do that, then by all means go for it. I've never gotten one because I can't get past the fact that, there's going to be half of the stuff in that box that I don't need. It's 20, 30 bucks a month. And even though some of these companies say you're getting a, $70 value for $30 or whatever, that may be true for the retail value of everything in that box. But if there's only 2 or 3 things in that box that are useful, then that value is not that retail value. The value is in those supplies that you're going to find useful, and the other stuff is just, more stuff that you have. There's a lot of things that you could spend that 30 or whatever the price of these boxes are, that $30 a month on that's going to help you become better prepared. Over the course of a year, you're talking about $400 or $500 for these subscription boxes that could be used for food storage, could be used for going to the range, could be used for classes and stuff like that, rather than getting these subscription boxes. It is cool to get that, that surprise or that Christmas present once a month, I suppose, and they make, good gifts. But over the long haul, I just don't see doing that on a month-to-month basis. I think there's better things to spend your preparedness money on. The next one I have here is, we've all heard the saying, 3 is 1 and 1 is none, right? Well, 3 is 1, but 13 is way too much. I fall into this trap all the time. I've got a lot of supplies that just are kind of redundant, over redundant, I suppose. When I think about this, I think of ferro rods and ways to start fire. I've probably got 100 different ways to start fire just here in my basement. So do you really need, all of that stuff? It's good to have a few extra ferro rods and, Bic lighters and stuff like that. But you really, especially when you're talking about in a bug out bag, when you're putting it on you, you don't need 5 ferro rods in a bug out bag. You don't need, 12 Bic lighters in your bug out bag. I hear all the time, people tell me about it, and they're like, well, hey, what about bartering? It's good to have these extra things for bartering, which is true. Bic lighters and ferro rods may be really useful in a bartering situation, but when it comes to disaster scenarios and a true SHTF type situation, how likely is a bartering situation going to be? If you need to barter for something, then you did something wrong in the first place, and other people coming to you to barter for stuff, it's kind of, there's a lot of things that need your attention before you even get to that whole bartering type thing. If you've got all your bases covered, which is pretty difficult to do, but if you've got all your bases covered in your preparedness plan and you can afford to maybe get some of those bartering supplies because you think they might be useful, go for it, I suppose. But it's just, there's a lot of things, as I said in the beginning, a lot of things that go into preparedness. So make sure that 20% of stuff is covered first before you go to that, that 80% of preparedness, which is like, I think of the bartering stuff and even the, gold, buying gold. I think silver is a better option than gold, but so 3 is 1 and 1 is none, but 13 is probably too much. And this is supply dependent too. There are some things where paracord you can never have enough of. Bic lighters, maybe there is a point where too many is too many. 100 of them may be too many. I don't know, but just go through your stuff and think about the need versus the want and all of that stuff. So the next one I've got here this is kind of a bugaboo of mine, and this is the cheap water filters. And by cheap, I don't mean low, really cheaply made. I mean the low cost filters, the Sawyers, the Life Straws and stuff like that. They're great for what they are and what they do, and I think everyone should have. I have a couple Sawyers, but depending on your situation, they may not be what you need. They may not do what you need them to do. I see a lot of times when people, especially when they just get into preparedness, they see on all these different prepping websites, they see the Life Straw or the Sawyer Minis, and they grab one of those, stuff it in their bug out bag, and they think they're good to go. It may be, depending on your situation, but those are high country water filters and are not meant for viruses and stuff like that. So if you live in an urban area, a suburban area, that may not do what you need it to do depending on the situation. If you're worried about a pandemic, the Sawyer Mini it's not going to do what it's supposed to do if there's viruses and stuff like that in the water. Or like I said, in an urban or suburban area, maybe there's chemicals. A lot of chemicals can't be taken out by any water filter, but some can. So just these $20 filters, they're not going to do. I mean, they may do what you need them to do, but for a lot of people, they're just not going to do what you need them to do. So maybe instead of that subscription box once a month, you save up a little bit and you get a better Catadine filter or something that is going to be a little bit more robust than the Sawyer filter. And again, this is not to say that don't get those. They're great filters for what they are. There may be situations where you don't need that filter that gets all of all of the other stuff, the viruses and the heavy metals and stuff like that. But make sure, even if you have to save up, make sure you get one of the better water filters. Water is one of the most important things when it comes to preparedness. And it's also one of the hardest things it's almost impossible to store enough water to last you over a year. That's just a lot of water. So if something is long-term, we're going to have to, or if we're in a bug out situation, we're going to have to get that water some way or another. And if it's a situation where it is some sort of pandemic or there's chemicals in the water, virus in the water, we're going to be in tough times if all we have is a Sawyer Mini. All right, the next one I've got here is the gimmicks. These days, there's no end to people trying to basically reinvent the wheel. You've got this little product that can do 14 different things, and it's a space saver, and it's gonna, you're not gonna have to carry this and carry that and carry this because you have this one thing. The problem with these is the more that a lot of these things can do, the more moving parts there are, and the easier it's going to break. Nothing is going to compete with the good old fashioned knife or a shovel or a pickaxe or a hatchet or something like that. Even though some of these tools are pretty great, some of them are, kind of ridiculous. The one that comes to mind for me, and this was pretty popular a couple years ago, was the Everstrike match. These were hugely popular and everybody had to have one. And, it's ridiculous because in a survival type situation, what would you rather have in your bug out bag? An Everstrike match or a Bic lighter? The Everstrike match, yeah, it's gimmicky, it's cool, and everybody had to have one, but they're basically worthless. You've got Bic lighters, you've got a Zippo lighter that's going to do 10 times the job that one of these Everstrike matches would do. You've got the ferro rods, the self-striking ferro rods, which are, pretty cool. But if you can't strike if you were injured, I suppose something like that would be pretty cool. But again, with the moving parts, something like that is bound to break on you. And then what are you going to do in a situation when you need something? It's a life and death situation, and you need something to work, and it breaks on you. So a lot of the gimmicks, I fall for these all the time, because they're just cool. There's new ideas and new things, and you want to try them out, and I fall for it all the time, and I'm sure a lot of you do as well. But when it comes down to a pure survival type situation, an SHTF type situation, nothing is going to beat the good tried and true supplies. All right, another one, the last one I've got here is the pre-made kits. Now, some of these, they do have their place, if somebody's first getting into preparedness or you're trying to get somebody interested in preparedness, maybe one of these kits are great. Maybe the kit comes in the perfect type of bag you want, or you want some of the supplies, that way you can practice. Like, I'm thinking of first aid kits here, but you want to practice with some of these supplies. So with these lower cost, inexpensive, made in China type supplies, you can use those to practice with. I've bought a couple of kits and basically gutted them and put my own stuff in it because I wanted the bags. I've got a first aid kit that has a lot of cool pockets and a lot of places I can put stuff. And with that kit, that buying the bag itself was going to be almost as much as buying the kit. So I got the kit, and then I'm able to use those supplies in it that I'm trading out to kind of test out or, do some practice stuff with. So the pre-made kits, especially when it comes to bug out bag kits, there are a couple of bug out bag kits that are fairly decent, but they're going to be the more expensive ones. So when you see and this goes for first aid as well, but when you see a trauma style kit or a bug out bag, it's less than $100, pre-filled bug out bag, less than $100, do the math. It's going to be pretty tough to fill a bug out bag with good quality supplies, the stuff you're going to need, for under a couple $100. It's just not going to happen. That's why a lot of us take so much time, years, to build up our bug out bag, change things out, and do all of that stuff. Now, if you're trying to get somebody into preparedness, maybe that lower cost pre-made kit, maybe that is a good idea because it gives them an idea about what they should have. And if they just fall off and forget about preparedness altogether, well, then you didn't buy them some super nice, Maxpedition bug out bag with, the folding saws and all the high end stuff inside the bag. You got them something that is going to sit in their closet and then they're never going to look at it again. So pre-made kits, they do have their place in some situation, in some certain situations, but when it comes down to you need to depend on those supplies in that bag, it better be the right supplies because you just never know. Maybe they do work in some sort of survival situation, but maybe they break and leave you in a really bad situation. So it's always better to have the good supplies. And finally, a bonus one that I just kind of thought about right now because I was talking about this is basically anything from Walmart. Walmart stuff is, just a lot of it is just basically junk. Now they do have some good stuff. They have the long-term food stuff, which is great there. the essentials and all of that. They have Coleman stuff. They have the Mountain House meals. You know, stuff like that is okay. That's the good stuff. But when you're talking about these what is the product that they have? The Ozark Trail is a lot of the camping stuff that they sell. The ferro rods, the solar blankets, the folding saws. I did a video a while back, a couple years ago, on the different types of folding saws, and I tested out one of the Ozark Trail folding saws, and it's absolutely junk compared to the Silky, compared to the SOG folding saw I have. Complete junk and just a pain in the butt. Now, they're low cost and they look exactly like the other ones, so they look like they're going to work. But if you're using that folding saw and it busts on you, then you've just got a blade, and good luck trying to use that thing without injuring yourself. So a lot of the stuff at Walmart is just junk. Some of it you can buy it, try it out, you know, and again, with the whole gift thing, maybe that is something good to give somebody that's not going to cost you a lot of money. You want them to get into preparedness, and it's a way to, you know, kind of pique their interest. But any of the stuff in the, you know, the outdoor aisle, the survival type stuff at Walmart, I just steer clear of it, or at the very least, do your research. Some of the stuff, yeah, it's, you know, it's going to be useful. There's some things that it doesn't matter how expensive it is what it is. You know, some of the fire starters and stuff like that. But there are some things, especially when it comes to tools, knives, and, you know, folding saws and stuff like that, that Ozark Trail stuff is absolutely junk. So, but that's it, you know, for the ones that I've got right now. Like I said, if you guys have any ideas of different things that are just kind of a waste of your prepping budget, there's other things to, you know, that you should focus on. Let me know in the comments below. I'm a big proponent of the education in preparedness. It is a whole lot more important than the supplies we have. We can't escape having these supplies. I mean, we need to, at one point or another, spend the money. But it doesn't have to be a waste of money. Or food storage, for example, we can't escape the fact that we need to buy food. We need to do that stuff. But if we're doing it the right way, we're not spending a whole lot more on food than we would have in the first place. It just means we have more on hand. So again, let me know in the comments below. If you haven't subscribed to the channel, make sure and subscribe below, and we'll talk to everyone later.